This video is sponsored by Aura. Spam calls got so bad for me, I just decided to give up. And spam texts, they're endless. What I decided to do is only allow family and close friends to ring through. Everyone else, straight to voicemail. But then I have to manually delete all of the spam texts. But here's the thing, my setup is far from perfect. I can't tell you how many spam texts I delete every day and how many calls I miss from important people. It's frustrating and frankly, it's exhausting to deal with. And it turns out there's a reason we're all bombarded with spam calls and texts, and a lot of it comes down to data brokers. These companies collect your personal information, like your phone number, and they'll sell it to anyone willing to pay, including scammers. It's a huge problem. That's where today's sponsor, Aura, comes in. Aura helps to remove your information from data broker sites, making it so much harder for scammers to find you. And finally, I can let all of my calls ring through and still have some peace of mind. But Aura doesn't stop there. They offer a full suite of tools to protect your identity and finances. They monitor for signs of identity theft, alert you if someone tries to open a credit card in your name, and they even include a VPN to keep your online activity secure. It's everything you need all in one app. And here's the best part. You can try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/gavinfish. Don't wait until you've been scammed or had your personal information used against you. Go to aura.com/gavinfish and take the first step toward protecting yourself and your family. Stop leaving yourself vulnerable to spam calls, to data breaches, and worse. Let Aura do the hard work of protecting your personal information. Again, head to aura.com/gavinfish and start your free trial today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm in my old office in a nondescript Victorian home in Western Pennsylvania. It is a mess. I have a friend in Argentina that would be just absolutely mortified at the mugre that I am working in, but I haven't been able to really get everything back together. You guys, I took an entire studio with me to Philadelphia, expecting to be there over a week, only to be pleasantly surprised when on the first day that I was actually there, the city of Philadelphia caved, which was awesome. So welcome back. If you're into true crime, you like to cut past fluff, sensationalism, you found the right place. I'm glad you did. Today we are circling back around, as you guys can tell from the title of the video and from the thumbnail, to the case of Madeleine Soto. There's going to be a lot of conversation today, so please use GF in the live chat to get my attention. Just a quick recap of where we are. Madeleine Soto was 13 years old. 13 years old when she went missing. You guys know that I'm like using my air quotes, right? Went missing. She didn't go missing. But anyway, she was reported missing. They couldn't find her. The first person they really zeroed in on was this guy, a man named Stephen Stearns. Now he was the on again, off again boyfriend of Madeleine Soto's mother, Jen Soto. And they took a look at his phone and they found out that there was some unhappiness going on in the household of Jen Soto and Stephen Stearns. Turns out that Mr. Stearns, if you believe what police say, which I do, had been essaying little Miss Maddie for at least 5 years. He had 1,700-ish photos and videos of his abuse of Madeleine Soto. And he had something like 30,000 more other CSAM imagery on his phone. So, and on his Google account. So anyway, he's arrested. He is charged with basically SA, 60 counts of it, and he is held without bail. Meantime, her body was found a few days later on March 1st. This happened last year. Okay. Now, what has been happening in this case? This case has been moving quickly, and I've been telling you guys, well, anybody that will listen to me, slow down. You move too fast. Yeah, we're moving way too quickly here. There's no way there's going to be a trial, but they are going to proceed forward as if the trial is impending. In fact, if you look at the website for Osceola County and you look at the first case, you can see all those 60 counts. We have a jury trial scheduled for this month, the 24th of this month. Jury trial to start 9 a.m. And then if you look at the murder case, you will see that we have a trial scheduled, I believe, in September. Yeah, September 22nd. Okay. But here's the thing. This is the thing that's going to slow everything down. Let me just show you this. If you go down to the docket, look at all of the motions that have been filed since about the 30th. There are close to 50 of them. I'm going to zero in today on just a few of them from both cases, but we're going to talk about the DP in the state of Florida. Now remember, this is Florida. Florida, this is me being apolitical, just observation, okay? Florida is a conservative place, has a conservative government with a conservative governor, but beyond that, it has a very conservative court. Judges are elected there, and yeah, they're just very conservative people reflecting the conservative nature of the state. Therefore, Florida is very much, it joins, the infamous, well, not infamous, but the famous states of like Texas and Utah and Idaho as being very pro-DP. And it appears to me through these motions that we're going to look at tonight, a couple of them, that the defense isn't worried as much about whether or not their client, Stephen Stearns, is guilty. They're worried about the penalty that he's going to face. And that's what a lot of these motions have to do with. And so let's, without like too much ado, let me come over here. Let's see, the first thing I want to show you is on the SA case. Okay, let's come on over with me over to Acrobat. This was filed in the SA case. There are some depositions that are scheduled. Well, they were scheduled to take place yesterday. These are all police officers that were deposed yesterday by the defense in the SA case or SB case, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and I wanted to bring that up. So there are depositions happening here. But let's go to this one, okay? This is in the murder case. This is a motion to prohibit death as a possible penalty. This is about an 8-page motion. This is the only one that I think I'm going to read in its entirety because I think that it is, well, with the best brevity, it is the most descriptive of their position, as far as I can tell. Okay, so we're going to dive into this, and I've got 3 other motions that we're going to bring up, but we're not going to read all of them because there are many, many pages. Having said that, just giving you guys a heads up, these will all be on my website. I have downloaded them. I've organized them. I've uploaded them to my server. I now just need to add them to Madeline's case page. So if you're a patron of mine, you'll be able to get into them on my website. If you're not a patron of mine, that's why we do it here on YouTube. Also, you can go to Osceola County's website, which I have linked below, and you can see everything for free there because Florida is awesome. Okay. Motion to prohibit death. I need to get a little lozenge here. Winters out here are dry, man. Okay. Motion to prohibit death as a possible penalty. The defendant, through counsel, moves this court to enter an order excluding death as a possible penalty because selecting a jury based on their opinions about the death penalty, quote unquote, death qualifying, will violate Stephen Stern's right to a jury and due process of law. I should just go ahead and tell you right now, this is not going to be successful. This is not going to be successful. Not in Florida. It's just too pro DP. I just don't see this as being successful. I see what they're doing here on the website, all these motions as these are things they must do in order to give a good defense to their client. They're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. I don't think that they will be successful when it comes to arguing about DP. It is widely recognized that the process of selecting a jury in a case where the state is seeking the DP has an impact on diversity of the jury and juror attitudes. Jurors are excused either by cause challenge or preemptory challenge because of their opinions about the DP. Stephen Stearns has a right to an impartial and fair cross-section of the community in his venire. I think they probably all just say veneer. Under both the Florida and U.S. constitutions, by the way, that is a Latin word that means to come, like to arrive. I don't know why in the law they just really love to use Latin words. Under both the Florida and U.S. constitutions, Mr. Stearns has a right to a trial by a jury drawn from a fair cross-section of the community. U.S. Constitution Amendments 14, Article 1, subsection 22 of the Florida Constitution. The presence of a fair cross-section of the community on veneers, panels from which petite juries are drawn, is essential to the fulfillment of the Sixth Amendment's guarantee of an impartial jury trial in criminal prosecutions. Quote, when any large and identifiable segment of the community is excluded from jury service, the effect is to remove from the jury room qualities of human nature and varieties of human experience, the range of which is unknown and perhaps unknowable. It is not necessary to assume that the excluded group will consistently vote as a class in order to conclude, as we do, that its exclusion deprives the jury of a perspective on human events that may have unsuspected importance in any case that may be presented. That lozenge is making my mouth go wild. Okay. Further, as to individual biases, it is appropriate that the venire reflect a broad range. Quote, the counterbalancing of various biases, or biases, I don't know how to pronounce that properly, doesn't matter, is critical to the accurate application of the common sense of the community to the facts of any given case. Ballou v. Georgia. It is fundamental to the constitutional right to a trial that a defendant be provided an impartial jury, of course. And guys, we want Stearns to get an impartial jury. This is definitely something we all want, right? We don't want everything to be stacked against him. We want a fair and impartial jury. We want the prosecution to present their case. We want the defense to defend their client well and competently. But I still think that this motion on its face is stupid. I don't think it'll pass any kind of muster. Okay. Where was I? Yeah, excluding or excusing potential jurors based upon their opposition to the DP will deprive Mr. Stearns of a venire composed of a cross-section of the community, a venire with various perspectives on human events, and a venire with a broad range of biases. Yeah, I think, okay. Quote unquote, death qualifying a jury presents a representative cross-section of the community from serving on Mr. Stearns' jury. Research has established that a juror selected because he or she does not oppose the DP is more likely to be white. Robert L. Young, Research has established that a juror selected because he or she does not oppose the DP is more likely to be white. Okay. Robert L. Young, guilty until proven innocent, conviction oriented. Okay, so that's where it is. Quote, African Americans as a class may be disproportionately excluded from jury service by virtue of a group's disproportionate view of the inappropriateness of capital punishment. Moreover, researchers categorize jurors in capital cases as demographically unique in that they tend to be both white and male. That's interesting. Here I am. I'm a white male and I have no problem with the DP. So, all right, that definitely fits in my case. This disproportionate exclusion of blacks appears to have a significant impact on the outcome of capital cases. And again, there is the reference. In all statistical models, black jurors are significantly more likely to oppose the DP than are white jurors. Age is also a factor. Older jurors continue to be more sure of the DP's appropriateness as compared to their younger counterparts. There is the reference. Death qualification also impacts the age and gender of jurors. Quote, men of all ages, with the exception of the youngest men, those approximately 20 to 30 years old, were more likely to choose the DP than were women. Approximately 49.1% and 65.1% of men and women, respectively, chose the DP. Wait a minute. Men of all ages, except the youngest men, were more likely to choose the DP than were women. But then it says 49.1% of men and 65.1% of women. It says respectively. Am I reading that wrong? Okay, doesn't matter. I'm not going to get caught up on it, but okay. Younger and older men, those approximately 20 to 40 years old and 70 plus years old respectively, were less likely to choose the DP than were men approximately 40 to 60 years old. Young women in the range of early 20s to late 30s were more likely to sentence the defendants to death than were older women. As age increases after 40 years, the probability of a woman choosing the death penalty, I'm trying not to say that phrase, gradually decreased. Okay. It would be a clear violation of the right to a jury representative of the community to exclude women or people of color, yet the accepted process of death qualifying does this very thing. I mean, it's an argument. They have to make an argument, but I don't think that a judge in Florida I just don't think that this is going to pass a judge's scrutiny in Florida. I mean, it could in Vermont, right? For those of you who are outside of the United States is not monolithic politically at all. I mean, not even think of the United States as 50 separate countries, and each one of us behaves differently, and we have our own laws. And I know that this isn't a civics lesson. You didn't come here for that, but you have to think of it that way. In fact, one of the reasons that Kimberly and I decided to move to Pennsylvania was specifically that Pennsylvania is neither a red nor a blue state. It goes back and forth between conservative leanings and liberal leanings. It goes back and forth, and we liked the idea of being in a swing state, an important state. So in Florida, I just don't think that this is going to pass judicial scrutiny, and on appeal, it definitely won't. I mean, these arguments have been made for decades, and there are still people on death row in Florida. Okay, the process of death qualification impairs the impartiality of the jury. Death qualification also impacts the presumption of innocence. Numerous studies support Justice Stevens' observation. Preoccupation with death qualification creates an atmosphere in which jurors are likely to assume that their primary task is to determine the penalty for a presumptively guilty defendant. Justice John Paul Stevens addressed to the American Bar Association Thurgood Marshall Awards dinner. When was that? 2005. Okay. See, for example, William J. Bowers, still singularly agonizing, law's failure to purge arbitrariness from capital sentencing. Research shows hearing all those questions about DP and seeing the dismissal from service of other potential jurors who express grave doubts seems to send the message that the judge and the lawyers, the authority figures in the courtroom, think the defendant is guilty and deserves death. He emphasizes that this is especially problematic because jury selection occurs at the very beginning of the process and thus creates a powerful first impression. And then there's another reference. When jurors are repeatedly asked whether they can follow the law and impose the DP, they begin to believe that the law actually requires them to reach death verdicts. Death qualification becomes a kind of obedience drill in which jurors feel they are voluntarily relinquishing the power to deviate from the outcome the law seems to favor. The personal characteristics of many death qualified jurors render them especially receptive to arguments that they must follow the implicit promise made to the court. Okay. The most recent statistics show less than half of the country's population favor the DP. And that's a New York Times article from 2016. DP loses majority support for the first time in 45 years. This could mean that less than half of eligible voters are actually eligible to sit on a jury if the state makes the unilateral decision to seek the DP. Now, that is a weak argument. That is an extremely weak argument. And getting back to our civics lesson here, you cannot treat the United States monolithically. The New York Times could say that the country as a whole does not support DP. It's in the minority now for 45 years. But if you go to Texas, it will be the majority who supports it. If you go to Florida, it'll be the majority that supports it. In Texas, I think it's probably the vast majority. Utah, vast majority. Idaho, Montana, same thing. It's when you get to California, Oregon, Vermont, Maine, the whole Northeast and New England, those will be minorities, right? So I think a judge will look at that and go, well, what does the New York Times have to do with anything? They're talking about a national average. We're talking Florida here. It's interesting. I don't think it's a good argument. Almost 50 years ago, Justice Stewart noted the impact on a defendant's right to a jury from a cross-section of the community when he commented, "Yet in a nation less than half of whose people believe in the DP, a jury composed exclusively of such people cannot speak for the community. Cold of all who harbor doubts about the wisdom of capital punishment, of all who would be reluctant to pronounce the extreme penalty, such a jury can speak only for a distinct and dwindling minority." That was Witherspoon v. Illinois. And I don't know Justice Stewart. That was before my time. 1968 is way before my time. Death qualification eliminates any juror who for religious or moral reasons is opposed to the DP. There are people with religious and moral reasons with religious and moral beliefs that use those as reason to support DP. And I don't mean to be arguing for it. I mean, I have no problem with it. And recognizing that there will be mistakes in the law, and that definitely is tragic. I still have no problem with it because there are some things that there is just not enough of a punishment for. But beyond my personal belief, I think that Florida, you're not going to have this problem. You're not going to be calling out a lot of people in the state of Florida. It's just my opinion. And I can't wait to read yours. Put a GF in your comments so I can read it, okay? Okay, these are jurors that Mr. Stearns has a right to have in his venire. These are jurors who comprise an impartial and fair cross-section of our community. I would imagine that I don't know this, but I would imagine that the majority of folks in that area are probably, it'll be a slim majority, but I would imagine they are going to be of Latin descent. And I would imagine partially that is the reason why it's DP is so popular out there. It's popular in that community. Again, trying not to be monolithic, right? But that's what I think. Okay, the state does not have a legitimate interest in excluding jurors based upon their opinions about DP. In Lockhart v. McCree, the court held that death qualifying a jury did not violate the cross-section requirement of the Constitution when the state has a legitimate interest in obtaining a jury that can properly and impartially apply the law to the facts of the case at both the guilt and sentencing phases of a capital trial. McCree did not argue that the process of death qualification was instituted as a means for the state to arbitrarily skew the composition of the jury. Mr. Stearns does make this argument. As in Reed v. State, it strains credulity. It beleaguers belief. To believe the state acts in good faith when it seeks to death qualify a jury in this case. I think that you can, I think there's probably a pretty good argument about the kind of social pressure in voir dire of asking in an entire room of a jury panel that might have 50 to 100 people, 200 people sitting there. Hey, are you opposed to the DP? Raise your hand. Okay, you're dismissed. That might be a problem. But, doing individual voir dire, which they all do, I think that probably would satiate that requirement. Okay, the defendant, or that concern. The defendant is aware the court in Buchanan v. Kentucky held death qualification appropriate in a joint trial, even though Buchanan was not subject to the DP. However, the court specifically found the government had a legitimate interest in one trial. This case can also be distinguished from Smith v. State. In Smith, the court held the trial court did not err in failing to inquire into the state's good faith basis to proceed with death qualification. At the time Smith was decided, the state only had to prove one aggravating circumstance to support the DP sentence. There was no requirement that the state also prove aggravating circumstances sufficient to impose death and aggravating circumstances that outweigh mitigation. Okay? The state should be precluded from seeking a sentence of death when there is no good faith basis to believe that a jury will unanimously find beyond a reasonable doubt that aggravating facts exist, that sufficient aggravating factors exist for the imposition of the death penalty, or the DP, that the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances, and that the jury will find that death is the appropriate verdict. The only possible motive for pursuing the DP in this case can be to skew the composition of the jury or coerce a plea. Both would be constitutionally impermissible. I don't think the only possible motive for pursuing that penalty is to skew the composition of the jury or coerce a plea. It is a legal and accepted penalty in the state of Florida and has been for time immemorial. I don't think they only do it for skewing the composition of a jury. I think that's a weak argument. Under both the Florida and U.S. constitutions, Mr. Stearns has a right to a trial by an impartial jury drawn from a fair cross-section of the community, and then parts of the constitutions. Conclusion: this court has the duty and authority to prevent the government from violating important constitutional rights. Death qualifying a jury denies Mr. Stearns the right to due process and a fair trial, which honestly has been an argument forever, and the Supreme Court has upheld DP on both the state and federal levels. So let's pause there for a moment, shall we? Let's bring up Maddie's picture and let's go over to y'all's comments, shall we? Let me refresh my page that has all the comments, and let's, hopefully that is, okay, see what you're saying. Nuna needs a nap. Manda says, Gavin, it seems they may have filed all these to slow the process down. It's it's reasonable to assume that. I don't know that it's done for the specific purpose of slowing down the process, but it does indeed slow the process down. And so when I look at the calendar on this jury trial, and it's September, and then I look at the calendar of the other jury trial and it is this month, I say to myself, no way, it's never going to happen. As much as we all want this to be over with, we want this guy to rot for the rest of his unnatural life. If he did it, I should qualify that, which I think he did, then but we want it to happen, but it's not going to happen. Thanks for that comment. Get back over on my system here. Tony, do you think a plea deal will happen if he gives testimony to Jennifer Soto, has knowledge of SA and or unaliving Maddie? Would that have happened by now? Not necessarily. First of all, let me answer the first part of your question. Only 2% of criminal cases make it to trial. So the overwhelming probability is that there will be a plea. Having said that, I think the only thing that they could offer him that would cause him to plea would be to take DP off the table. Because he's dead to rights on everything else. Like, pun not intended. But yeah, like all of the digital forensic stuff against him, he's in a bad place. He's in a real bad place. So the question then becomes, does the prosecutor have the inclination to offer that sort of plea and say, we'll take DP off the table if you'll just save us all the time and hassle and money? Being Florida, I don't know. Probably not. Would it have happened by now? No, we're at the beginning. It wouldn't have happened by now. Not unless, I mean, there are defendants that are like, yeah, okay, I did it, and let's just get this over with. There are those kinds of defendants. But this is kind of life or death for Mr. Stearns. And so I imagine that it's not going to happen anytime soon. TMI Steph says, Gavin and crew, missed y'all. Can't stay because I have like 5 months to catch up on. But Gavin, it is true crime. Is it true crime aficionados or aficionados? Yeah, it's aficionados. That's what it is. I'm leaning into the puns. Gavin, you need honey's lozenges. All natural with honey inside. What? These are Ricola. It's yeah, it's important that it be sugar-free to my wife. Okay, I need to do that. It's so dry here. I think the relative humidity is like 15%. DM says, Gavin, right on. A fair trial, a fair conviction. Yeah, I'm serious about that. There is a certain amount of schadenfreude that we all feel, right? This pleasure in somebody, in like justice coming to Stefan Stearns. We all feel it. But we should try really hard to not succumb to that. We want the law to remain what is in Spanish fidel, truthful. We want it to remain intact. We want the fidelity of the law to remain. That's the most important thing. So, yeah, we want a fair trial. If he's convicted, we want to make sure that it's done fairly. If police officers who investigated this, I'm not saying that they did, but if police officers who investigated this case didn't Mirandize him or, didn't get a search warrant when they should have, and he gets out on a technicality, I will be extremely upset, but not at the defense. I will be upset at the police. So far, it appears that they have crossed their T's, dotted their lowercase j's. They are on top of it. I think they've done a terrific job from my vantage point. Anyway, thanks for the comment. Keep on going here. Todd McGill, Gavin, will the judge really read the whole thing? It was a hard no after the first paragraph. I don't know what their process is. I think they're supposed to. They're supposed to take into consideration all of the case law. In the trial or in the hearing that I was at on Monday in Philadelphia for the civil case of Ellen Greenberg, the judge was really funny. In one case, there was a motion to exclude the testimony of two state troopers. And I remember specifically as Trooper Trey and Trooper Martin. They had both questioned people about the case, even though they weren't investigating it. And the plaintiffs and the defendants gave their arguments and everything. And before Joe on the plaintiff side was about to rebut the other argument, the judge was like, no, Trooper Trey is excluded. Let's move on. Like, bang. He was so confident. The judge was like, no, I know the law. Take it up on appeal if I'm wrong. But remember, judges don't ever want to lose on appeal. That's their deal. So he's like, no, he's excluded. Let's move on. We've got other stuff to do. Didn't listen to the entire argument. He was just like, he knew the law. And I felt like he was fair too. Okay, coming down. Good to see you, Christy from South Australia. Kay Turietta says, Gavin, if he does get DP, how long will it take to fill that sentence in your opinion? I looked this up. In Florida, it is not uncommon to go 20 or 30 years before the sentence is carried out. There have been changes to Florida law in recent years, like over the last decade, to streamline a lot of the process, including automatic appeals and so forth. So there have been efforts made to speed up the process, but still 20, 30 years. So Mr. Stearns could sit, if he were to be convicted and sentenced to the DP, what is he now? 37, 38, something like that. Let's say he's 40 if he were to be convicted, let's say he's about 40. Yeah, he could be 60 or 70 before the penalty is carried out. I think his parents will be long gone by then. That's just the way it seems to go. Let's bring up little Miss Maddie again. Great question. I had the same one, so I looked it up. Robin Bernardi says, Gavin, because of you, I am able to refrain from schadenfreude. Good for you. I do my best. I don't always refrain. You may have another opportunity to explain how grace can be extended to anyone that is in a similar position as Stephen Stearns. The lesson will ripple. Yeah. So my thought on this, guys, and I know that there are those that disagree with you, but I thought about this long and hard, starting with the Amanda Winkowski case. Amanda Winkowski was a young woman in her 20s who had become addicted to opioids. She had turned to crime to feed that addiction. She was last seen going into the home of a drug dealer and a man who has since been convicted of the R word. As a young man, he was convicted of attempted R word. And anyway, she was never seen alive ever again. Her frozen solid upside down body was discarded in a trash can across the street from that drug dealer's house. So I had a lot of animosity toward that guy as I investigated the case. But as I thought about it more and more, I thought about Amanda Winkowski, and this is really important to me anyway. It's really easy to write off a person doing the sorts of things that Amanda was doing as a lost soul and is just an addict or just a prostitute or whatever label that people would put on her. But as I got to know her by investigating the case, she wasn't just that. She was a daughter, she was a sister, she was a granddaughter, she was an auntie, she was she was a terrific student, she was a good friend, she was a talented dancer. You know, all the stuff. She was faithful to her Catholic belief system. She was extremely loving of her siblings. So you start to look at her and you say to yourself, no, she has worth. She's not just the labels that people are giving her. She has worth. And then I had a moment where I said to myself, well, if that is the case, then Antoine Garner, who was my suspect, who is currently in prison for the crime that I described earlier, who I believe killed Amanda Winkowski, he is also all of those other things. And so while I don't want to forgive what he did, I want him to face justice for what he did, I also can't discount the human value that he has. Okay? So the same kind of thing happens with little Miss Maddie. Now, she is among the most innocent among us, right? So all that other conversation doesn't apply to her as much because she just didn't have that much life in her. When she was alive, she had tons of life in her, but she didn't have a long life. She didn't have time to make the mistakes that got her labeled as different things, right? But Stephen Stearns, who I don't feel a lot of love toward, I have a really hard time. I have a really hard time seeing his human value. Yet, if it's true for Amanda, it's true for Antoine, if it's true for Maddie, if it's true for me, if it's true for you, it's true for Stefan. So I do my absolute best to extend as much grace and respect to a person as I possibly can. And that is also why I hate prison justice. And I try to avoid the feelings of Schadenfreude, the whole idea of feeling better at somebody else's pain or misfortune. Robin, I hope that was a good enough description. I don't know if I'm right. That's just where I am. Yeah. Thanks for that. And we'll bring up Maddie's photo again. Jersey Jen says, I'm not wrong, but I don't know what it was about. Because that was a while ago. Yeah, Mooney, this is the best chat on YouTube. I love disagreement respectfully done. And you guys always keep it classy. I'm glad you do. Thank you. A couple more things. Helen says, Gavin, basically the defense want the DP off the table. Well, of course they do. Yeah, they want no victim statements because this could make the jury give him the DP, but his family can. To save him. Oh, I see. Yeah, because there are other motions to preclude, victim statements and stuff like that. Yeah, Helen, good idea. Or good comment. Jessam says, Gavin, in Canada's provinces have different laws in some areas, but the federal government regulates many aspects of Canadian law. Same thing in the United States. Federal government has jurisdiction over a lot of things. But where the rubber meets the road is at the state level. And there are differences between a provincial system of government and a parliamentary system of government and the democratic republic and the sovereign state kind of organization that we have here. They may seem minute on the surface, but there are pretty big differences where our legal system was born out of English common law. It kind of stopped at 1782, right? And then we went off on our own, and the Commonwealth countries a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty similar in that respect. Thanks for that comment. Let me go back up. Let's see. Here we go. Helen, Gavin, not long ago, someone said on chat that a lot in Florida don't know about this case. At the time, I said, well, that is a good thing. They will not have a problem finding a jury. Yeah, that is something that is true. That, I see it on the chat. I see it in the fish tank a lot. You guys know the fish tank, right? If you go over to my website, gavinfish.com, and you click on this little fishy up here, that will take you up to the fish tank. This is where we talk about true crime together, including my videos and the cases that we cover. Look at this. I mentioned that I was trying to grow out my hair to donate hair, and look at this young woman, how remarkable she is doing that. Anyway, back to your comment. Yeah, so I read in the comment section a lot, and also in the fish tank, about people in Florida that are like, wow, I've never heard about this case. And it kind of shocks me, but it's because we are in this true crime bubble. And also the lawyers making the arguments, they are in the legal bubble. There are plenty of people in Florida, in Kissimmee. There are probably people in that apartment complex that have never heard about this case. So yeah, great comment, Helen. I really need to sneeze. I wish it would just come out. Let's see. Kathleen Craghead. I'm in Utah, and I say DP put me on the jury. Yeah. There are a lot of people that feel that way, Helen. I certainly do. And sometimes we have to wrestle with our own belief systems, because sometimes there are exceptions to the way that we feel, right? And this case is not an exception for me. Crimes against children are just beyond the pale. Cat eyes wide open. Gavin, I've been researching this from the psychology viewpoint, and he clearly is showing who he really is to all. Research the dark triad if you dare. Ooh. I don't know. I don't know if I dare. Demon hugger. Yes. Kimberly knows how to take care of me. She's got the Ricola. She also gave me some Walmart brand dry mouth lozenges, but I haven't tried these yet because I like the Ricola. Let's see. I don't think I caught a virus. I just, it's so dry. And where I grew up, where I am from, it is the same relative humidity year round. And out here, man, it goes up and down. The defense are doing their best, but this is an open and shut case. Yeah. Tim, yeah, I'm happy to stay on the case. Jupiter Clark, Gavin, what makes you so passionate about this specific case? Oh, it's very simple. It's that the victim is a child. That and the egregious nature of the case. Now, you guys know very well. I mean, I was just in Philadelphia covering the Ellen Greenberg case. This one I got so passionate about Ellen Greenberg because when I found her case, I had a daughter that was engaged to be married. And I started to think about, what do we really know? He's our son-in-law now. We love him deeply, but it started to scare me. And so I started to get into it. But with Maddie, it is that she is just a child. Now, this is a picture when she was a little girl, but yeah, she's just a child. And that is why. Nifty 50-50. Gavin, the way I see it, the defense is throwing every single thing they can out there, hoping something will stick and get him off the DP. I think they know this is their only chance. Too much evidence. I think you're right. And the thing is that as a legal strategy, it's a good one. Joe Pedraza said in his presser the other day, the law is complex and there are landmines everywhere you go. Proverbial, of course, metaphorical landmines everywhere you go. And if you rub up against just one, things could go radically different. So, I think the defense is showing that they are giving a competent, vigorous defense of their client, and that's something that we should all want. Jessam says Stephen Stearns equals Dill Hall. Indeed. Speaking of which, Demon Hugger, you and I need to talk, because I saw a couple of, I think that was you, right, that sent in a couple of merch ideas, and they were rad. So, yeah, we need to talk. And I understand you're local. Maybe we should talk. Plus, I understand you hug them demons, and sometimes demons need a hug. Let's see. BC Girl says, Gavin, thank you for being so passionate. Well, it is my pleasure. Thank you very much, BC Girl, for the super chat. I appreciate that. Okay. How long? Man, we're 50 minutes into this. Okay. Let me just run over to a couple more things that I want to show you. We're not gonna get into them specifically, but bring you over to Acrobat. This is a motion to preclude the DP as a sentencing option. So, motion to prohibit DP in the voir dire, basically, right, is a possible penalty. Motion to preclude the DP as a sentencing option. So, this one hit me hard. Death is different. Yeah, death is different. Tell that to Maddie. Death is different. Anyway, the argument, because the right to life is a fundamental right which must be subject to at least the same constitutional protections as the right to vote, the state must establish state guards to ensure that it does not treat its citizens in a disparate and arbitrary manner with respect to their lives. That is the main argument. This is a 22-page argument. I don't think that in the state of Florida it is going to get anywhere. The next argument is the lack of standards to guide local prosecutors in their decisions as to whether to seek the DP inevitably leads to the arbitrary and disparate treatment of similarly situated defendants. Yeah, arbitrary actions under the law, that is a place where there's room for movement. I know that doesn't mean much, but yeah, making sure that people are treated fairly is very, very important under the law. So that's what they're arguing here. The third one is the integrity of the rule of law and of the judicial system demands that courts treat the equal protection principle announced in Bush v. Gore seriously and afford it precedential weight. Never thought that Bush v. Gore would make it into a murder trial, but it does. When was Bush v. Gore? 2000? Is that when it was? The need for non-arbitrary standards in the application of the death penalty outweighs any benefits of unbounded prosecutorial discretion. I watched on Court TV today a former prosecutor now in private practice, a former DA now in private practice from Florida saying, no, this is not going to work. I mean, district attorneys have been able to, state's attorneys, whatever they call them in Florida, they've been able to use their discretion broadly to decide whether or not they are going to seek DP. So yeah, that's what this one is about. It's like, hey, a person's right to life is at least as important as their right to vote. That's the argument. This one is a motion to prohibit questioning of potential jurors as to their willingness to render a verdict for the death penalty. So it's pretty much the same kind of thing as the first one, right? And I think, yeah, that's a shorter one, but there it is. And then the last one that I want to show you is a motion to bar the state from using peremptory challenges to exclude prospective jurors who express religious or equivalent reservations about the DP, but who cannot be excused for cause. So this one's a little shorter as well. I think it's about 6 pages, but those are their arguments basically, right? Like, hey, we don't want We don't want them using peremptory challenges. Remember that I'm trying to remember maybe Aida is here. I don't know. Preemptory versus cause challenges. I don't remember the difference. Give me just a second here, guys. What's the difference? You know what? Look at Maddie while I'm asking this. Between preemptory challenges and challenges for cause in a trial. Okay. Challenges for cause are used when a potential juror is believed to be biased or legally unqualified to serve on the jury. The attorney must provide a valid reason, such as the juror having a conflict of interest, showing clear bias, being unable to follow the law. There's no limit to the number of challenges for cause that an attorney can make, but the judge must agree to remove the juror. Preemptory challenges allow attorneys to dismiss a potential juror without giving reason, though they cannot be used to discriminate based on protected classes like race, gender, or other characteristics. Each side has a limited number of preemptory challenges, which varies by jurisdiction. If one side believes a preemptory challenge was used for an improper reason, for example, racial discrimination, they can challenge it, requiring the opposing attorney to justify their decision. Okay, so that is we've had civics lessons, we've had law lessons, we've had great conversation. Before we go, let's go over a couple more comments real quick. Do you think Jen's alleged recent inpatient treatment was to provide her additional protection from prosecution? I mean, it's possible. It's also possible that she is a mentally unwell person who just lost her 13-year-old daughter. And while I believe, and many believe, that she was somehow involved in the loss of her daughter, it still would cause mental distress. So there's probably a spectrum from what I just described and what you described, and the truth might be a combination of the two, somewhere in the middle. I don't know. Tony Miller says, Gavin, I'm an addict, alcoholic in recovery. Hey, Tony, that's a great example. That's another terrific example, right? Your value is no less because of your addiction than my value that I don't have that addiction, because we all have something. And I was getting back to Amanda. A lot of the information that I received about Amanda was from her sister Danielle, who was her co-criminal trying to feed a similar addiction. And she finally was able to go into recovery. I think she's been a recovering opioid addict for 10 years now, something like that. She was able to get into recovery, right? And she is amazing. She's amazing. And Amanda would have had that chance too. So yeah, that's why I'm passionate about just extending as much grace as you can to anybody, to everybody. Nobody deserves it, but we should still, or not everybody deserves it, but we should still extend it. Roger Bro, Gavin's greeting from New Zealand. You know what, Roger? Is New Zealand old enough now that we can start just calling it Zealand? I'm just putting it out there, okay? American law seems very confusing. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed it is. Robin Bernardi gives me a bravo. Thank you very much. Snow White, Gavin, it's not Schadenfreude. It's about him facing consequences of his actions and us feeling the soothing emotion of justice. I think that there is that too. And I'm not telling you, Snow White, that you are guilty of feeling Schadenfreude. I'm just saying the possibility is out there, and a lot of us do. I do. I just try really hard not to actually feel that, right? But yes, I agree with you. I want him facing the consequences of his actions. 100%. 100%. Great comment. Let me just get a couple more. Tori Walker, hello, Gavin and everyone. Hope everyone is doing well for Sweet Maddie's justice. Yeah, praying for Sweet Maddie's justice. Thank you, Tori. Melly Mel says, Gavin, but doesn't that go for Maddie too? He took her right to life, so wouldn't that just, I don't know, even, I guess? Not trying to sound dumb. No, you're not sounding dumb. But yeah, it goes for Maddie too. Yeah, I mean that's the main argument for DP. And I know that a lot of you watching this probably disagree with me, and I'm cool that you are, or that you do. But a lot of us who believe that DP is appropriate, we feel that way because he took a life, and a little girl's life. And what is the appropriate punishment? There isn't one, right? So yeah, Melly Mel, I agree with you. 100%. NJ Kathy says, Stephen Stearns killed her childhood. He robbed her of her innocence. He extinguished her future. If Stephen Stearns does not get the DP, then what crime should ever be subject to DP? Yeah, I mean, it is the worst of the worst. For sure. Did I have that up too? Sorry about that. Hopefully you guys have been able to see that. Cat eyes wide open. Perhaps the mountain of motions filed is in part the defense's response for not granting a further extension of the DP trial they originally requested and were denied. Delay tactic. Yeah, it's possible. Possible. All right, see if there's a couple more. Jess says an eye for an eye. There's more to that statement. Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you guys on that. Kathy Reed, Gavin, would he be eligible for the DP for only the SA? So Florida is an interesting place, Kathy. Florida passed a law that has not been challenged yet that certain SA type crimes, when related to children, are eligible for DP. But the prosecution in this case, as I understand it, is not seeking that penalty in the SA case. They're only seeking that penalty in the murder case. Probably, I'm guessing it might be for political reasons, like they don't want to. I don't think very many people want that law challenged all the way to the state Supreme Court. And so by not charging it, there can't be anybody withstanding. I don't know. Maybe I've been looking at technicalities too much in the Alan Greenberg case. Woman's Warrior. Gavin, I was thinking about this case today, and I thought Stephen Stearns may try and pass the buck to Jennifer Soto. However, he cannot get away from the CSA and the CSAM, so no argument, in my opinion. However, unaliving, maybe he will try. He might. I hope he doesn't. Gavin, have you heard of Victoria Martin's case in New Mexico? People are still angry at that one. I'm trying to think. That rings a bell, but I guess I don't remember it specifically. Jessam, have you hugged your demon today? Indeed, guys. Them demon huggers. Gotta hug them demons. Oh, that's so funny. Payman is the demon that I hug. I can't remember if I showed this one or not. I hope I did. Thank you very much for that super chat. Gavin, Kissimmee Police Chief stepped down as well as about 12 officers fired because of some kind of scandal. Do you think it would affect this case? From all of the interviews that I've seen, I don't think that it's going to affect the case. Okay, guys, we're over an hour. That's enough. I've kept you long enough on a Wednesday night, 8:35 p.m. But you know what we're going to be doing tomorrow? More Madeline Soto. We're coming back to this case. There's so much. So join me tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I will be here. I hope you will be too. Special shout out to Aura for sponsoring this live stream. I deeply appreciate them for doing that. Also, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for everything that you have done for me bringing you over to this case. Remember that you can go over to my website anytime, and there's so much there. There will be more that I add. Okay, there's tons there. I want to bring you to this page, my support me page. The most important button is this one. I need to move it to the top, crying out loud. You know, my mods are all volunteers, and Autumn, my lead mod, wrangles them all. They don't need much wrangling because they're awesome, but she manages everybody. And if you think that she deserves it, and I think she does, will you head on over there and buy her a coffee? That would be terrific. Remember to click on CrimeCod, go over to the website, and subscribe to the newsletter. We've got about 1,500 people subscribed to CrimeCod, and I keep threatening that I'm going to make it a daily, and I'm getting close. In fact, you know what? I need some help, guys. I need your help. I need more writers. If you feel the inclination to be a true crime writer, I can train you. And Jacob, my colleague in this, can train you. If you ever wanted to dip your toe into journalism, you know, journalism now is something where most people go and get a journalism degree from some prestigious university, but for centuries, it was a learned craft, and it is a craft that can be taught, and I would love to teach you. So if you would like to learn how to be a journalist and cut your teeth writing for CrimeCod, reach out to me. Will you just go to my website, hit this little icon right here, a little envelope, and that will bring you over to this, and just contact me and let me know. I would love to have you. It would be great. Oh, one last thing. You guys that are staying for the end are amazing. One last thing. Beth Meeks is joining me on Monday. Okay? Monday, Beth will be here. We're going to be looking at the Naziah Harris case with her. That's the one I got. Remember we did this with Bree last week. Well, Beth is coming back. She's going to be coming back on Monday. So definitely be here on Monday. All right. With that, guys, I bid you adieu. Thank you for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.